Hey, Chris Kerber with you here. And look, the folks at Classic Air Care know that when it comes to your HVAC needs, when it comes to servicing your house, they know you've got a choice. They want to be the people you choose. They've got a mission statement for their employees that sums it up well. Because the customer has a need, we have a job to do. Because the customer has a choice, we must be the preferred choice. Because the customer has feelings, we must be considerate. Because the customer has an immediate need, we must be timely. Because the customer is unique, we must be flexible. Because the customer has high expectations, we must excel. And because the customer has influence, our reputation is in their hands. And most importantly, because of the customer, we exist. Those are the kind of values that you want when people come into your house to do repairs to your furnace, your air conditioner, and now's the time to get it done. You still have a couple days left to maximize your savings and save up to $7,500 in rebates and savings on a new unit. Call them now. Go to ClassicAirCare.com. You can get a free quote in minutes. You can also book an appointment online. They've got a 4.8 Google rating, and the stars are right at the top of their website at ClassicAirCare.com, so you can see what other people are saying. It's Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues lost to the San Jose Sharks by a score of 4-2. They're off today and back in action tomorrow, kicking off a back-to-back in Dallas with puck drop at 7. And then on Sunday, they're back home to take on the Rangers with puck drop at 5. Also this weekend, we have the Army versus Navy game starting for you at 1 o'clock tomorrow, as well as the Browns versus Chiefs at 11 on Sunday. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
More Blues talk, more often. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
On YouTube right on time for Alex to be a thief. Don't appreciate that. We'll get into that later on. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you want to check us out on YouTube, now is the time to do so. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. And we're doing so right as we get to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber joining us here on the show. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. Rough loss last night for the Blues. Felt like a scheduled loss, though. I didn't have any scathing takes about the team. What did you make of last night's game for the Blues against the Sharks?
Yeah, I can see why some, and you consider it to be a schedule loss. But in the end, if the Blues are going to get back into a playoff spot, those are the kind of games you've got to win. They've got to, and yes, they beat San Jose twice this year, albeit once in overtime, once in a shootout. This is a San Jose team that was playing really well, like a 10-6-3 prior to their 3-game losing streak coming in. But the reality of it is, Brandon, is this Blues team has a lot higher expectations of itself. And I don't know that those expectations were met last night. But I think what you saw, especially in the post-game conference, they were repeating the same thing the head coach said, which I think is a real good positive. And it shows you where the difference is going to have to be. The difference is going to have to be in the mental preparation of this hockey team, and that's an individual thing. That's not a coach thing. I mean, the coach can ask, the coach can demand, the coaches can prepare, right? But it truly is a mental thing that the players have to be ready to go in those situations. And, unfortunately, a couple of mistakes cost them last night.
Kerbs, I noticed this on postgame last night doing the breakdown with Joe. If you look from the middle of the second period until the end of the hockey game, Brandon Saad only took 4 very short shifts. In the final 14 minutes of the third period, he did not touch the ice. What do you make of that?
Well, Jim Montgomery addressed, I think, a question about Brandon Saad in his pregame press conference. One of the things he said was he's really helping the team when he's one of the forwards that's getting high on the puck in the offensive zone. So on kind of the conscientious side of the game, he's been one of the better players for the Blues in that side of things. But he's not getting to the parts of the ice to make a difference on the offensive side of it. And that's where the Blues need production. The top players aren't doing enough on the power play, and 5-on-5 is a continued work in progress for this team. So, to me, I think that's probably a bit of a statement, for Brandon Saad, where, hey, we had a talk, we did it, and then Jim Montgomery now this is assuming that he wasn't nicked up. And this is one of the challenges, guys, is I didn't talk to him afterwards, and I haven't been to the rink today, but assuming that he wasn't banged up in some way, shape, or form, then it's a clear message from the coach that you're not doing enough. So there's definitely room where the Blues can get better production out of Brandon Saad that would really help this team.
Kerbs, I did want to ask you on the other side of the game last night was Macklin Celebrini, who's one of the most impressive young players that I've seen in a while. You've seen a lot of young players in this league, Kerbs. He's 18 years old. He has 10 goals, 9 assists. That's 19 points in his 20 games so far this year. Is he right up there with some of the best that you've seen in the last 20 years?
Well, yeah, he's coming in and he's making an immediate impact as a first overall pick, and that is good to see. I think what impresses the living heck out of you is when you talk to folks around the San Jose team and they talk about his work ethic and they talk about, his willingness to extremely coachable and what he's able to do in terms of that. And he's got that, you look at him and he'll lose the puck and then all of a sudden he's got it right back, kind of like we saw for a while with Ryan O'Reilly. But when Ryan O'Reilly was here, he was a 10-year vet. This is an 18-year-old playing in the National Hockey League and doing it. And he doesn't have great talent around him either. And this is where you always get those interesting lines when you look at the game of hockey. You go, okay, well, this guy could be better if he had a sniper, if he had this on the wing. Yeah, that's all very true. Macklin Celebrini seems to be one of those players that is making other players around him better. And that's the greatest difference. I think he's been great to see. And thank God the St. Louis Blues do not play the San Jose Sharks anymore because, number one, they've given the Blues fits. But that's 7 points in 3 games against the Blues for Macklin Celebrini. So 7 of his total points this year already have come against St. Louis. He's going to be bummed we're not in their division.
He's on pace potentially for 30 goals this year, Kerbs, if he can stay healthy the rest of the way. Other players under the age of 20 in the last 20 years that have done that: Austin Matthews, Patrick Laine, Jeff Skinner, Steven Stamkos, Sidney Crosby, end of the list. So he's potentially putting himself. He's got to continue. He's got to keep going on this pace, but he's putting himself into a pretty good spot.
Yeah, you know what the thing is, guys, and I said this to Alex on the postgame show last night. I'm starting, and I want to talk to some coaches a little bit more about this and let them tell me I'm nuts before I really, decide that this is going to be my mantra here. But
no, let it fly.
Here's what you're seeing. Joe Vitale brings up Kirill Kaprizov a lot. Okay, Macklin Celebrini's got a bit of a Kaprizov factor in there. The Sidney Crosby factor, a Steven Stamkos factor. These guys just weren't coming in. And Ovechkin, for that matter. These guys, and others, so there are others in here. These guys aren't coming in as a first overall pick, a high draft pick, right? And just flashing some skill and making a difference there. They're coming in as some of the hardest working players on their team and doing so at a young age, right? There's a difference, in my opinion, between those guys and, say, a Trevor Zegras, who has got a tremendous amount of skill, right? Or Lafreniere in New York. Really good skill. Now, you've seen what's happened with Patrick Laine. Sometimes it can fall off. Different things can happen a little bit, and he ends up on his third or fourth team. That's not going to happen here with Celebrini. But it's just when you get the young players with the work ethic like that, that's what makes it special. And where my philosophy's starting to change, I go, okay, well, the guy's, he's young. He's been in the league a couple of years. It's starting to come. Yeah, I think it's time that maybe you can expect a little bit more out of some younger players, because there are young players coming into the National Hockey League proving it. And to me, maybe my expectation sometimes of young players has been a little too tempered.
Look at Jake Neighbors.
Yeah, Jake Neighbors is one that came to mind. And then, you look at the Blues system right now, Curbs, and obviously we haven't seen a lot of them at the NHL level or even professional hockey. But does that give you some optimism for guys like Dalibor Dvorsky and Jimmy Snuggerud?
Well, yeah. Now here's the thing. This is what flies in the face of what I'm talking about. Jake Neighbors took a couple years. He went up and down in the minors, and then another one. But then he came out quick. But what's worked really well for Jake? His work ethic, his coachability, and he says, I know what it takes to get here, and I'm just going to go in there. And even when he's not picking up points, he's making some things happen, and he's playing the game the right way, which is great. You've got to be really excited with what you're seeing with Dalibor Dvorsky. I don't think the Blues are in any rush to bring him up. Having gone down there, talked with Steve Konowalchuk, their head coach. Another player down there, guys, I talked a lot about him in camp, that I think he's getting better and better, and they keep telling me that he is down there. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him at some point in time with a cup of coffee this year as Kaskamaki. But if Jimmy Snuggerud comes in and as a number one, sniper for the St. Louis Blues, or a potential goal scorer, as was described to me by a former GM in the league, an Oshie plus, which would be pretty doggone good. And he comes in after that third year of seasoning in college, and who knows, maybe a championship crown here in St. Louis for Minnesota. That's a heck of a bonus. That's why I also think when it comes to the Blues, I watch the really good teams and you watch the Blues. And the really good teams, they just make cleaner plays. The pucks aren't coming in all the time at the guy's shin level. They're not trying to force every pass into the middle and have it get deflected away, and things like that. Their top skilled guys are just making cleaner plays and sniping. And I think that era for the next era for the Blues is coming with this next wave of players to complement what they have here. There's still, to me, just a little bit of a difference between those teams and the Blues.
Curbs, I appreciate the time as always, my man. Enjoy yourself this weekend. A couple of games, Blues versus Rangers, Blues versus Stars. We'll hear all of that right here on the home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. All the best to you this weekend, my friend. We'll talk with you again soon.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week. Talk to you next week.
Same to you. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Normally on Wednesdays, this weekend to do on Friday. Switch things up for the schedule. Alex and T-Bone will talk to Curbs next Wednesday here on the show.
I don't know about you, T-Bone, but if Jimmy Snuggerud's Oshie plus, BK's going to be trying to trade him right away. Go get Troy Brower, right?
Move. Yeah.
They had to
I
do
gotta go
that
get Troy
because
Brower.
they didn't have a Jake Neighbors. Now you've got a Jake Neighbors, so you don't have to do that this time around.
I like how you're trying to defend it, but give it 6 months and you'll be like, I think you should trade Jimmy Snuggerud.
Now, I will say, if you got Blues version of TJ Oshie, I don't know that you'd be singing the same tune, because he got to 20 goals once in his time with the St. Louis Blues. And if you have, for the first 7 years of Snuggerud's career, 1 year and it's year 6 when he hits 20 goals for the first time, I don't think people are going to be happy with that.
It was a different time. Inflation, it's 30 goals.
It was also a different time when Ken Hitchcock was your coach and was all about, don't worry about the offensive zone as much as worry about the defensive zone.
To a degree, but there were Blues players on those teams that were putting up more significant point totals than what TJ Oshie had. And this is not me crapping on TJ Oshie. Oshie was a really good player, and he went on to have an amazing NHL career. But, Oshie was a little lower on the list of goal scorers for the Blues at those points in times than if you got the equivalent in 2024 of what TJ Oshie was early in his career, maybe this is an interesting question to have down the road, but Alexander Steen, 33 goals in a season that TJ Oshie ended up with 21. Backus, 27. Schwartz, 25. In that same season, Vladdy Tarasenko, in what was, I believe, his first year in the NHL, had 21, which tied TJ Oshie in 15 fewer games. Other guys were putting up numbers. Oshie wasn't. If Snuggerud becomes that, we're going to have some questions. That guy will not be considered a top-line winger for this Blues team. Let's put it that way.
And I would say they're different just because TJ Oshie was viewed as the savior for the Blues because that was the first-round draft pick when they were in the middle of the rebuild, and that was one of the first guys that got drafted, and everyone was like, oh, my gosh, look at TJ Oshie. I don't think Snuggerud's going to have that same type of pressure because you're coming into a team that's already got the guys that are in the spotlight. Now, he's going to have pressure to the same point of like a Vladimir Tarasenko where it was like they were expecting big things from him immediately. It is going to be pretty interesting to see what response is for a Snuggerud because I think there's a lot of Blues fans expecting a dude to step in and get 30 goals.
30 goals or trade him.
I think there are Blues fans that do feel that way.
That's what I'm doing. 30 goals or get the hell out of town.
BK will be ready to move on after 3 games.
No, stop it. I do want to ask you a separate one on that. And we'll get to ask us anything on the other side. 314-399-9646 is your comfort service text line. Patrick Berglund as a comparison for Dalibor Dvorsky.
That would be a disappointment.
Consistently a 15 to 20 goal scorer, put up 50 points, 40 to 50 points per year.
That would be a disappointment. Patrick Berglund never lived up to the expectations.
Totally agree. But that's very much in his range of outcomes. Like, let's keep that in mind because Bergie was a pretty significant prospect at the time that he was brought up. First-round pick, top 15 selection for the St. Louis Blues. And the reason why I even looked him up, Alex, is because you brought up, like, this guy was the savior. Berglund at one point was considered to be, like, kind of need him to work out as your center. Need him to be a top 6 guy.
He was viewed as, like, a number 1 center. Now, he's 25th overall. But, I mean, he was viewed as a number 1 center. And I think at the end of his time in St. Louis, he was used as a winger. Like, Berglund's biggest problems were he wanted to be a goal scorer.
No doubt.
And they were like, no, we need you to be a playmaker. And he just wasn't it.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, we'll get to Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise, here on BK and Ferrario.
Back to more exclusive Blues Talk. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers from the 6 for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. It's Friday, very different segment. We get into sports or nonsense.
Please tell me you looked at the text line and were like, man, none of these are sports questions. Why would this be?
No,
because it's Friday.
He was thinking about what we just talked about.
That's all. All right, from the 636, what is the best and the worst part of the holiday season in your opinions? Best part, I believe, is just like the joy. I know. I know.
Man, you're getting deep today. Are we going to drop like last week when we got deep and we lost connection?
Alex, you understand this? Certainly. Yeah, oh boy. You understand this. T-Bone, you will not. When you have kids, the holiday season completely changes. It completely changes your perspective on things. It used to be, and I would never say this out loud until right now, a little bit of a nuisance or a frustration, the amount of time that you have. Like, hey, we've got to go here, 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 here. And it's like, man, I've got other stuff to do. And now those things have become like you look forward to them instead of them being a time-sucking activity. So the joy that it brings to see Luka having fun and he sees lights and just he himself lights up, or during the October Halloween time when he would see a pumpkin, he would immediately go crazy. So like that stuff is really fun. The time sucking though it's the hardest part of it. Not the worst necessarily, but the hardest.
It's just the travel more than anything. Like how many times we have to get in the car, load up, and drive places. Like that's not fun. One kid was fine, but 3 is kind of a disaster. But I mean, Luca's not even in the Santa stage yet. Like Adelaide and Emma are in the Santa stage now. So like everything about Santa they love, and that's actually really fun for me because, I enjoyed the Santa when I was younger, but watching it now through their eyes is very, very exciting for me.
Yeah.
T-Bone, you remember Santa?
Well, I don't have the whole. I do remember Santa. My favorite part of the holidays is just putting up like the Christmas tree, seeing the decorations, ornaments, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I really have a negative on the holiday because I don't mind it being cold outside.
Oh well, I don't mind that.
I don't have a ton.
I can't wait to get out of here.
We've never had like a big family Christmas celebration where you're bouncing around going to all different places. So I don't know if I really have a big negative outside of the one thing I did think of one is the trying to figure out what is the right gift for somebody. Sure. If somebody you ask somebody, what would you like for Christmas? They're like, I don't know. And it's like, oh my God, well now I really got to feel the pressure if I've got to kind of guess and see if I can figure it out myself. Yeah. There's always that chance you're wrong. But that's the one thing for me is kind of I like giving gifts. I'm not I don't want to get you anything, but I do find it different. Yeah, I want to get a good one. I don't want to here's a gift card.
From the 314, what are your 3 favorite bars or nightlife places in St. Louis? Alex, I know you spend a lot of time at bars.
My kitchen, my basement, and my bedroom. Those three. Big on the basement one. Nothing better than at 8 o'clock at night when the kiddos go to sleep and look at my wife and say, you want to have a night out? And she's like, yeah, it'd be fun. You go downstairs and she turns the movie on, and then I do the lights and I just flicker them back and forth and go, it's like a nightclub.
And then she goes, would you please stop?
Yeah, she's like, please, just knock it off.
Yeah, I figured that was
T-Bone?
Coming. I'm trying to think some of my
You think T-Bone goes out and has nightlifes at bars?
T-Bone goes to concerts with his dad, and they seem to go to places that I would like to go to, so I know he goes to some.
Yeah, what was that? I can't remember the name. The problem is I always know these places. Like, if I went there, I'd be like, I love this place. And then when I, get asked a question like this, I can never remember the name of it. There's a brewery that's down by Busch Stadium that I really enjoy.
Four Hands?
Not Four Hands. It's not. It's a little bit off a little bit. It's in kind of Old Town area.
Old Town area.
I'll think of it later on.
Perennial? Must be a great spot.
That's not Perennial.
Urban Chestnut?
No, I would know that one.
Anheuser-Busch?
The brewery?
I can't remember the name of it. It's frustrating because it's my favorite place to go. I've been there multiple times.
Must not be that good.
Clearly, very memorable
J.J.
experience.
Newcomb's what their whiskey is. I love it. It's got kind of a cherry oak flavor to it. It's fantastic.
Man. Me saying my basement, my kitchen, my bedroom was better than this.
Well, T-Bone really is doing well finding out what this brewery is. I love Heavy Riff. It's in Dogtown. I think it's fantastic. Really good spot. If you want like really upscale types of beers, Side Project is fantastic out in Maplewood. There's a new place out in St. Charles by me, Alex. I went there a couple of weeks ago. There's this Gimme Golf place. It's a golf club, like golf simulator stuff. They've got leagues out there. I didn't know this was a big
speaking
thing.
my language.
Yeah, it's a really cool spot.
Square One, that's my spot.
Oh, okay.
I love Square One.
It's a good
Shout out
spot.
to them that you couldn't remember. That's fine.
Sponsored, I'd really remember.
There you go. So Gimme Golf has a place, and then right next to them, they had the space open. I went there a couple of weeks ago. We were talking to the general manager. Cugino's out in Florissant. Their ownership group took over this space, and they put in a bar. It's called Looper's Pub, and amazing whiskey selection, really good drinks, cool vibe. Got a ton of different screens. So it'd be like a perfect place to go for a Sunday, or if you're a golfer in the winter especially, you could go over to Gimme Golf, and then afterwards they've got these beers on tap for the members. It's for everybody, but it's like $4.25 FORE. It's like $4 for a pour of their beer. Great spot. So that's one of my new favorite spots to go to out in St. Charles. It's called Looper's Pub.
This is going to sound like a really old person thing to say, but I don't see the point of a bar.
What?
What do you mean?
I'd rather just sit at home and drink than go somewhere.
You're going to get me in trouble because people are going to accuse me of being a bad father.
Well, we did this already, remember?
I love going to a bar. Like
With
I'm
your
not,
kid?
Him right next to you.
Luca in the little carrier.
No, just like
Shots?
But next week we're going to like 6 different cocktail bars that we've got reservations to, because I think it's just like the greatest experience to just sit down, have a good drink, have good conversation with people. It's the best, dude. I can't believe you don't
BK
like
orders
that.
a round of shots, and it's just him and Luca, and he shoots all 4 and then high fives Luca. Shots, buddy! Woo!
I just see him sitting Luca next to him at the bar, and Luca with like his sippy cup with milk, just popping it on the bar.
You do like bars. I think you don't go to bars with the right people, Alex.
No?
You do like bars. We've been to a bar before. We had a really good time.
Yeah, and Alton, that one was fun.
Well, we go to Alton.
During March Madness.
Where was the other bar that we went to?
Memphis. We went to.
I wasn't on that trip.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. It was early in our experience.
Still-
That was very
Still-
early.
Today.
Still
I
upset.
might have faked it that night, though.
Went to social, Westport Social. We went to Westport Social together. We have a good time. When
I
we go to
hated
bars.
Westport Social, not
Okay.
the spot, but when we had to play ping pong
Okay.
together and go up and talk to people randomly. That was very uncomfortable. BK was like, this is fun. And I'm like, no, it's not. We're bothering people that are enjoying their time together, asking them to sign something.
That's fair. All right.
What, you guys like working on a petition or something? What were
No.
you doing?
We were
we
guest
had to-
bartenders, remember when we did
Yeah.
that? But we
Oh,
didn't
I
even
do
get to
remember that
bartend,
now.
which was a little frustrating. I
I
was
do
really
remember
excited
that
to
now.
Tom Cruise it.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. Like, I'm fine with drinking at home, drinking at a bar. I'm fine with drinking anywhere as long as there's beers.
Buddy, you have a problem.
No, I don't.
I'm fine with drinking anyway, as long as Luca's with me.
Favorite beer?
CPS, please, CPS.
My favorite beer is a cold one. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into our football pick'em for this week. Our first week did not go particularly well, and I'm really excited to hear T-Bone's picks this week because there's literally one college football game available, and that's where he typically has his success. And you know he ain't going to be picking any of these bowl games that are coming up.
No, he hates the
T-Bone's
bowl games.
exclusively going NFL for the foreseeable future. We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes. But coming up next, what changed for the Cardinals between when they announced at the press conference, is plural, the 6 of them that happened about 2 months ago, to where we are today when they said at first, we're going into a full retool, we're going with this youth movement, and now it feels like they're trying to kind of compete next year. What changed between those two stances? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you guys have missed any of our show today, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
We're also available right now on YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL.
Get there before it's gone.
Bacon Wrapped Wiener, Bill Marsh, Splashback Deuce is over there, Adam over there, Cody over there. A lot of people hanging out in the chat right now. For the Graveyard Chat. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is where you go.
Did you see Bacon Wrapped Wiener put T-Bone's face as his profile picture?
Yeah, hey, Bacon, don't use my face.
It's all right, man. They were using mine for a while, too.
It's the only face to use. All right, so the Cardinals announced at their first press conference of the offseason, like, hey, we're going into a full reset mode. And John Mozeliak said, when asked, hey, how do your veterans feel about this? The guys, especially with the no-trade clauses, are they on board with what you guys are trying to accomplish? And Mo said, honestly, I don't know. We'll have to find out. He's going to have conversations with all of those guys, and we'll see where we go. Well, Michaelis apparently wants to be a part of it, for better or worse. It sounds like
Sonny Gray
wants to be a part of it. Wilson Contreras wants to be a part of it. And Nolan Arenado is open to exploring other options.
Damn. Yeah,
so
no one's like, no thanks.
3 of the 4 would like to stay here in St. Louis. And as I think about like what changed between where we're on that day to where we are today, where the Cardinals are now saying like, hey, we think we can be a pretty good team. We're probably going to hold on to Eric Fetty. We're probably going to hold on to Ryan Helsley. I think that's probably the thing that changed for them. I can't think of much else other than the money situation. I guess that would be a part of this as well. But when they heard from most likely the big one, Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray, we would like to be a part of this thing. Well, there's a middle-of-the-order hitter and a number 1 starter that you don't have to seek from the outside now, that you just have internally. And that does change expectations in a serious way for them. Do you guys think that's what shifted, or is it bigger than just that?
I think it's the payroll. I think it's the money that they got from the television once they knew that was secure. Because if you really do need to reset, a hard reset, and get off as much money as possible, even if you've got guys that are telling you, hey, I don't want to get traded, I want to stay here, you're going to make a hard push to say, yeah, but we really need to move you guys out of this contract because we need to reset our stuff. I personally think that they did not expect to have the money that they got from the television, and when they realized that, hey, there's this deal in place that's going to give us $50 million to where we're not questioning it anymore, now you look at it as, okay, well, let's still try and get off some money that we don't feel is necessary, but let's embrace more of the pipeline and keep our major league roster as it is so that we can stay somewhat competitive. I personally think it was the money side of things.
I think this is what they always wanted. I don't think that they were going to just completely shed all of this payroll, whether they knew what the TV side was or not. I think they had an idea when that press conference started. Hey, we're probably going to be back with FanDuel. We don't know the exact number yet, but I think that's where we're going to be. I think that's where they were at that press conference. I think they just said all the right things, right? They got the refresh word out there. They avoided rebuild. They avoided retool. They knew that Cardinals fans wanted to see a youth movement. I think as an organization, they knew that's where they needed to go with their position players. But I think they could look at their roster and say, we've got one of the best closers in baseball. We've got the number 1 starter, to your point, and we've got a middle-of-the-order bat in Wilson Contreras that, across baseball, we don't know how he's really valued because everybody else didn't want to give him a contract when he was a free agent, and we even tried to put him in the outfield in our first year with him. I think they looked at this roster the whole time and said, it's better for us to kind of go through the youth movement while also remaining competitive, but they just didn't really say that in the beginning, right? Yep. I think they always believed that this was the path to go. I just think they said all of the right things, which is hard to believe after seeing the press conference of the press conference. I think they just did a good job of relaying a better message than they have done in years past and avoiding the absolute disaster they are from a PR standpoint. because I think they know it's better for business to stay somewhat competitive in this division, especially when you see the Milwaukee Brewers losing Adames, knew they were probably going to trade Devin Williams, and then everybody else is just kind of staying where they are. I think they knew it was best for business to go young while also trying to stay competitive and see if they can make the playoffs still.
It's risky business to count out the Milwaukee Brewers because I did that last year, and I learned my lesson. Like, you can't do that. That team is going to find a way to pivot. Like, I think it's very possible their rotation ends up being better this year than it was last year.
And they still have a dangerous offense, even with Adames leaving.
And defensively, they're going to be amazing. They will be better defensively this year than they were last year because Adames is not as good defensively as whoever it is. I think it's probably going to be Ortiz that ends up playing shortstop for them this year. They'll upgrade defensively. They're havoc everywhere on the base paths. Like, they are just hell to play against on a night-in, night-out basis. But the upside is pretty significantly changed by not having Willy Adames and not having Devin Williams at the back end of that pin going into this season. So I expect them to probably be a little worse than they were last year. It doesn't seem like the Cubs are going to do a whole lot this offseason. Now, there's that talk of them potentially landing Tucker from the Houston Astros. I don't think that's real. I think that's nonsense. I think especially the deal that's out there that's been reported where they're going to trade Paredes and Seiya Suzuki to the Astros. It sounds like Suzuki doesn't want to leave, and it sounds like the Astros view him as like the guy that they need, so good luck making that kind of a move work. And the Yankees just make more sense from everybody's perspective. So I don't think they're going to do that. So you look around the division, you're like, okay, so the Brewers take a little bit of a step back. Cubs don't take a massive step forward and are likely going to trade, what's-his-face as well, center fielder, first baseman.
Bellinger.
Mm-hmm. So what am I afraid of in this division? Like, what's scary? What's holding them back? And you want to give yourself the out of them potentially getting better, the young players inside of the Cardinals organization. I think that changed too. So, like, the money situation shifted. You got positive answers from both Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras. You see what's happening around you inside of the division where you get a little bit more information of the Cubs not pushing, the Brewers stepping back a bit once again. And all of this adds up to, okay, let's kind of stand pat and see where this gets us. Let's see what the young players can do. I think they're going to have better production at first and third this year than they did a year ago. I think it's possible that the rotation is a little better over the entirety of the season than it was last season. I don't blame them for trying this year. And if it doesn't work at the deadline, you pivot.
Well, and
you
the nice
make the
part,
moves that are necessary.
The nice part is you say trying, but it's not trying where it is throwing money at the problems, right? It's looking for internal answers. It's not where it is, okay, well, we're still trying, so we've got to go pay a catcher that and this isn't meant to be a shot at Contreras, but they clearly didn't evaluate him properly, thinking that they were going to get this like great defensive catcher that could really call a baseball game. That was hey, we just lost our franchise icon at catcher. What do we need? We need a catcher. So let's throw money at the problem.
Bingo.
Well, now you're locked into a 4 or 5 year deal, and you also have to put a no trade clause into it to where if you ever did want to trade him, well, then you got to go through the player to make it work. That's why, like, though it is trying, and I think that's why I'm almost on the sense of I think they saw they had 3 beginning pillars of back-end bullpen, number 1 starter, middle of the order bat. That's why I don't know if they ever really had a plan to tear this completely down. I think
unless the middle of the order bat and the number 1 starter said, I want to go. And then you have to, because tearing it down includes those 2 going elsewhere. If those 2 say, I don't want to be here anymore, you make that work and you send them elsewhere and get the money off of your books. And now you are in a rebuild. Maybe it's still considered a retool, reset, whatever, but it lasts longer. Like, next year cannot be a competitive season if you do not have Wilson Contreras or Sonny Gray on the roster.
Yeah, they probably would have moved on from him. If you really believe you can compete with those guys, and even though if they wanted out, you can tell them, hey, you're under contract. Like, it's not you have to be traded. I know they wouldn't have, but I think they always felt they could be competitive. I bet even Mo had a selling point to them about it, you know? I don't think this was just Contreras just like, man, that arch.
That selling point worked last time, didn't it, for Nolan Arenado?
It did.
Yeah.
Last time around it worked.
It worked to stay, but didn't work in the sense of he was right.
Yeah, But I think this time around, I don't think this was just Sonny Gray was like, I love it here. This wasn't Contreras going, I love it here. I think that there was some of that. I also think there was some of Mo going, hey, we still think we can be good. Here's how we think we can be good. Are you guys in on this so we don't tear this down? And I think they bought in. And that's why I'm like convinced that they weren't necessarily all in on this. Because I think trading Contreras and Gray was a rebuild. But I also don't mind the idea of, hey, let's try without throwing money at the problem. Because they can do that this year. You won't be able to do that next year. If next year they want to try, or they are better than we think this year, then they got to start going back into free agency and start spending. This is the 1 year you can have we don't have to spend a ton of money. Maybe you go out and sign like a bullpen arm to a 1-year deal. That's nothing. You don't have to go and throw a bunch of money at your problems. You can just see if you have those answers internally, and then Chaim Bloom knows where they are at as an organization when he takes over.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Jordan Deacon back in the studio with us today. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, it is time for our Football Pick'em Challenge. Each Friday we do this here on the show. We pick 3 games against the spread, no over-unders, no prop bets, anything like that. We pick 3 games against the spread every week. We do it for the course of a month. Find out who ends up getting punished at the end of the month. We'll get into our picks for this week coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues Talk more often. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
All right, boys, it is time for our football pick'em. We do this each and every Friday here on the show. We pick 3 games. It's a very simple way to do it. We have 3 points. 1 point, 2 point, 3 point plays. 1 point is the least confident. 3 points is your most confident play of the week. Last week, we all went 1 and 2, and we all hit on our 1 point play.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Not a great week for us when it came to our pick'em challenge. This week, it's almost exclusively NFL games that you've got prior to the Monday show. You do have Army-Navy. If you'd like to pick that, feel free to do so. But otherwise, it's all NFL games going into the weekend. Alex, what is your 1 point play this week?
1 point play, boys. I am going with the L.A. Chargers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. T-Bone likes to talk a little bit about east to west, west to east. Well, Tampa's got to travel to L.A., and I think the Chargers are still in this playoff fight. And I think Tampa is kind of at the point where things are going to start falling off. It's the do factor. They've won 3 in a row. I think on the road, Chargers defense going to keep Baker Mayfield and that offense quiet. So I like the Chargers. What's that, -3?
Yeah. I really wanted to like that game, but I don't know the status of Ladd McConkey yet. And if he's out, it makes me nervous because Baker could have one of those days where he just throws it over the top a couple of times to Mike Evans, and then boom, Chargers have no running game to speak of right now. Bucs are really good against the run as well. And then it becomes can Justin Herbert do miraculous stuff, which he's capable of, but it requires that instead of just being a bonus for them. McConkey's status is what kept me away from picking that game, but it was one that I actually considered.
Yeah, I considered that one as well. My 1 point play, I'm in the NFL, and I'm going with the Ravens -16 against the New York Giants.
Really?
I do not
It's a
like
big
that.
spread. It's why it's my 1 point play. But I think the Ravens know that they've got to start playing some better football as we're getting down in the home stretch. That Giants team is awful. 0-7 at home. I don't think they're going to get enough stops. I think Baltimore's going to run them out of town. I love the Ravens -16 in New York.
Wow. You want to know how much I don't like that one? I gave serious consideration to the Giants.
Giants, me too.
Gave serious it's just way too big of a line. I'll have to look this up to see what the record is for teams in those games, but that's way too
16-point spreads always scream disaster.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns is hard to cover, especially in the NFL. This season, we've seen more one-score games than any season in NFL history at this point of the year, and you're picking one that's going to be more than 2 touchdowns.
And look, man, you're not wrong. The Giants are
Totally.
a disaster, but especially for how the Baltimore Ravens have been playing, 2 touchdowns is wild.
Might be good for you, though.
It's a 1 point play, though, man. I like it.
Yeah, worst
Throw
case
it out
scenario,
there.
Who cares? It's the 1-pointer.
All right, my 1 point play is let me make sure that I didn't screw this up.
My 1 point play is this
Okay
is like
over there, Brandon?
This is like chess, though. You take your finger off the chess piece,
What is he eating?
still alive.
I flipped 2 around. My 1 point play is a team that I'm picking as my 2 point play, but I put the versus blank, and it was versus the other. So yeah, my 1 point play. Sorry, boys.
You need to go on
Your
vacation.
vacation doesn't start
I know,
till tomorrow,
seriously. Can
sir?
you not check out for another hour and a half, please?
Is the Carolina Panthers -2.5 points going up against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys defense is an absolute atrocity right now. They found a way to lose last week in just new and intriguing ways. I think the Panthers are playing some inspired football right now, guys. Bryce Young looks really good. He is navigating the pocket better than he has at any point in his NFL career. That little reset where he got benched for a couple of weeks ended up being the best thing that could have possibly happened for his NFL career. I don't know what clicked for him afterwards, but he's got a little bit of a bleep it attitude right now, and I love watching him play. So I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers. It's only a 2.5 point line, which basically means these teams are seen as equal in Vegas. I don't think they are. I think the Panthers are the better team. -2.5 at home against the Cowboys.
I almost went with this one, but I think the Panthers are going to get smacked back down to earth at some point, and this feels like that game, which is why I was like, "Ooh, God, I don't know."
I didn't have a good feel for that one.
Mine, though, I am going to the Houston Texans-Dolphins game. Originally, I was like, I'm going to go Dolphins here, but here's why I picked the Texans instead. It's -2.5, which is a field goal. The Texans have found
I've
ways.
got it at 3, just a heads up.
I'm sticking with 2.5.
That's fine. You can have it at 2.5. But I'm
it was the
telling you
Circus
for later.
Sports, Illinois.
Last
2.5.
night I saw it at 3, and I'm keeping it at 3.
I don't know what's going on right now.
I've got the Dolphins +3. as my 2-point play.
Wait. So we're picking the same game, but we're going to have different lines?
We apparently got it at different times. I saw last night on the Circus Sports app at 3. It might
I
be
saw
down
it
to
this
2.5.
morning when I was
totally fine.
going back over it, 2.5. I like the 2.5 because I think this is a field goal game. And I like the Texans in this one. The Dolphins, are trying to keep their hopes alive, but the Texans are coming off of the bye / they know they have to perform better being a playoff team. And this one being at home for Houston, I think this offense shows up. So I like the Texans minus 2.5.
I'll go ahead and hop in here, T-Bone. I've got the Dolphins plus 3 points on the road at the Texans. I don't trust the Texans at all, man. I'm done.
I don't either.
I'm totally done with them. I do not trust that offense. I do not think their defense is very good. They have a good pass rush, but that's pretty much it right now. The Dolphins are frustrating as hell, but they're finding ways right now. Jonnu Smith has shown up now as a big-time third weapon for them in the passing game. They got Jalen Waddle going a little bit last week as well. Tyreek Hill is almost like the odd man out, seemingly, in some of these games. If Devon Achane can get going a little bit on the ground, he's not found his footing, but if he can get a little bit going on the ground, I think the Dolphins end up winning this game outright. So I've got the Dolphins plus the 3 points on the road at the Texans. T-Bone, your 2-point play.
My 2-point play, look, you guys were like, Tanner is out of college football games. He's got to go to the NFL. What will he do? Not so fast, my friends. We've got the triple option game. The best rivalry in college football.
Desperation.
Army versus Navy. Army's the better football team. They had a chance to be in the playoff. Navy kind of fell apart in the home stretch. I love Army minus the 6.5 points against Navy. That's my 2-point play. You laugh, but when there's 2 points next to my name, you won't be laughing no more.
Hey, man, good for you.
You're desperate, man.
I
You're
respect
a desperate
it. Good
man.
for you. I would have, if I'm going to pick one side, I would pick the Army side, but I did not want to pick that.
You were a desperate man.
I would have
Coming
picked
from the 2-time loser.
I would have picked Mizzou to get destroyed against Kansas, and the reason I bring that up is because with these kinds of legit rivalry games where there's history between the two sides, I have no feel for it. Even if one side is clearly better than the other, no feel. Alex, what do you got for your 3-point play?
3-point play, boys. I am taking the Cincinnati Bengals minus 5. The Tennessee Titans, you know how many points they've scored this season? The second fewest in the AFC. You know where the Bengals have been good this season? On the road. They're 1-5 at home. They're 4-3 on the road.
That's weird.
I think this is one of those Bengals teams that is going to at least keep guys like BK thinking like, oh, they could make the playoffs still. Well, they could do so when they beat up on the Tennessee Titans. And that the Titans team can't drive the ball past the first down marker. They can't stop plays. I think the Bengals win this one by more than 5, but it's a minus 5 line.
I thought about that game, and then I got a little afraid that the Bengals defense could make Will Levis look good for 1 week, and that's why I backed away from it, but I don't mind that pick as your 3-point play. My 3-point play, I'm back in the NFL, of course, because there's no more college games, at least that I could find. But I like the Commanders minus 8 at the New Orleans Saints. Saints don't even really know who their quarterback is. Derek Carr fractured his hand, and the last thing I saw out of a press conference was, yeah, it could be some quarterback I've never heard of, or it could be Spencer Rattler. And I was like, well.
It's the quarterback you've never heard of.
Yeah, well, that guy must stink still. So I'm going with the Commanders minus 8 against the Saints, and Lattimore's making his debut with the Commanders. I think the defense is going to play a lot better. And again, against a nobody quarterback, I like the Commanders.
I've got it at 7.5 if you'd like.
Oh, yes, please.
I am going with the Commanders, minus the 7.5 points at the Saints for all of the reasons that T-Bone just mentioned. One of these teams is still very much in playoff contention. The other one, I wouldn't be surprised if they tell Alvin Kamara, hey, man, we're going to give you like 10 carries in this game. Let's get you healed up for next year. We've signed you to that extension. There's no reason for us to push this. The Saints are beaten up. They're battered. They're bruised. They know what's coming, which is an offseason of legit reset for them. For the first time in about 20 years, they've been putting stuff on the credit card, and it is time to pay that bill. The Saints are just not a very good football team. Commanders are getting Marshawn Lattimore back this week as well. First time that he's making his debut for them. I like the Commanders a lot. Minus the 7.5 points on the road at the New Orleans Saints. How you guys feel?
I feel great.
I do not speak about my picks until after they are done.
I'm not going to lie. I felt good about my thoughts on the NFL last week because I went 3 NFL games and I went 1 and 2, and I really started to question myself today when I was making my picks.
I've learned not to make comments on my picks until after because they come back and bite
comment
me.
or not, so it don't matter.
So, Alex, since 2000,
Wouldn't have made that comment, man.
there have been 6 teams that are at least a 16-point underdog at home. 6 teams, since the year 2000. They are, surprisingly, the teams that are the underdogs. So this would be the Giant side of things.
Yep, like plus 16.
1-4-1 against the spread. So T-Bone actually has the better side here. Typically, at least historically speaking, the teams that are the massive favorites on the road do end up covering that spread more often than not. I'm a little surprised to see that.
Still feels like a trap.
I see 6 points coming my way.
It is worth noting there have only been 3 such games in the last 15 years. So we're operating under very little recent history of this.
And you're confident with this season of NFL.
Yeah, and those teams were the New England Patriots in 2009 that beat the Miami Dolphins, the New Orleans Saints in 2020. That's a weird one as well with the COVID year. And then the Rams, actually, in 2021, were a 16-point favorite against the Houston Texans. And they ended up pushing in that one 38-22. So that is your recent history of those big-time favorites. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. We do have Mike McKenna joining us in studio to talk all things St. Louis Blues at 1 o'clock. But coming up next, there was a piece in ESPN.com earlier today about the top 10 offenses in Major League Baseball heading into the 2025 season, as currently constructed. The Cardinals, you'll be shocked to hear, did not land in that top 10. What would they have to do in order to get there by the end of the season? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night, the Blues lost to the San Jose Sharks by a score of 4-2. They're off today, but back in action tomorrow, kicking off a back-to-back in Dallas. That puck drop is at 7 o'clock. But before that game on Saturday, you can hear Army versus Navy action starting at 1 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Then on Sunday, we have the Browns versus Chiefs at 1, and the Blues are back home to take on the Rangers with puck drop at 5. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're back to more exclusive Blues talk. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T1, I'm BK. So the top 10 offenses in Major League Baseball, according to ESPN.com, are pretty much what you would expect, and all of them have some kind of level of stardom to them. The number one offense in Major League Baseball, this is according to a new piece that was released earlier today on ESPN, is the LA Dodgers, as expected. When you've got Freeman, Betts, Ohtani, that's a pretty good place to start. They're really good offensively. The Atlanta Braves are number 2. Again, they've got that star power right at the top of their order. You've got Acuna coming back. You've got Austin Riley. You've got Ozzie Albies. You've got Matt Olson. Even though some of them are coming off of down seasons for their own standards, they've got enough of a track record that I trust they're going to be really good offensively again this year. The New York Mets they have at number 3. When you add Juan Soto, that's a pretty good place to begin. They also have Francisco Lindor and some young players, including Vientos, who's come on really strong for them. So, boom, there's your top 3 for them. Number 4 is the Houston Astros on this. Kyle Tucker is, at least as of today, still a part of that offense. Pretty good place to start. Yordan Alvarez as well is one of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball. You've got that top part of your order. This is what I wanted to get to, Alex. Because as I look at these, there's really no case for the Cardinals to be even considered anywhere near these top 5 offenses. Like I feel like that's almost the top tier, and then you put in the Padres into that category as well if you want to, with Luis Arraez, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and now the emergence of Jackson Merrill. But beyond that, that's where it gets a little more interesting. You've got the Yankees, who are really just, at this point, Aaron Judge. You've got the Diamondbacks, who have a couple of stars in Ketel Marte, and if you get back to what he was previously, Corbin Carroll. You've got the Orioles, who at this point are as much about projection as they are production. The Guardians, who have a couple of really good hitters, and the Phillies, who, if they get back to what they were, maybe they go up closer into that top tier. When you look at the Cardinals and you compare them to the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, or the Guardians, those 4 teams that are at the back half of this top 10, Alex, do you see a scenario, any scenario, in which the Cardinals are at least in the conversation offensively with them by the end of next year?
Yeah, I see a scenario because I could look at a team like the Diamondbacks, and why are they in that spot? Well, you've got Corbin Carroll, you've got Ketel Marte. Those are 2 premier hitters in the middle of your order. I think Wilson Contreras is in that category. And the other one, you have to develop Jordan Walker into that. And whether it's Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman, you need 2 big whoppers in the middle of your lineup, and I think Jordan Walker is and should be that guy for them. And then if you want to add the third one in, whether it's Nolan Gorman and his potential 40 home run power, or in my opinion, Mason Wynn's all-around game in terms of his clutch ability, but you've got to develop Jordan Walker. If you develop Jordan Walker into the guy that we've all expected him to be, there's your offense and how you make it, because you've got Contreras, MVP caliber player, Walker if he emerges into that type of player, and then Mason Wynn / Nolan Gorman. And then you already know you can develop the complementary pieces. You've done it for the last however many years. You just need that other big-time bat.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get into that conversation, you need somebody to emerge. Because, like, when you look at some of these teams near the back half, Guardians don't really fit into this, but the D-backs do, is you got one guy that's kind of in that MVP conversation, right? Just
Marte.
One. And Marte is the guy for Arizona.
And maybe Carroll, if he gets back to what he was 2 years ago. Second half, he was much better.
But if you're in, like, that top 5, that's when you have, like, 2 guys. And then, like, the third bat for the Dodgers happens to be another MVP guy. But most teams, it's
stupid.
2 MVP caliber guys offensively with a third guy that's a really good piece that just doesn't get recognized for that kind of award. But to get in that back half, you just need one guy, really, to be in that conversation. And whether that is more likely would be Wilson Contreras, because I think had he been healthy last year, he would have been playing into that conversation potentially because of how well he played.
I think we underestimate how good he was offensively last year. If you look at OPS plus, just a standalone metric, right? He was at 140 last year. To put that in perspective, Jose Ramirez, who I think is one of the most underappreciated players nationally, was at 141. Just to go back to the Guardians example for you, he is their dude in the middle of the order. He was at a 141. Contreras was at a 140. So if those guys were similar next year, what you're really missing is Stephen Kwan and David Fry, who were 30% above league average offensively last year. And you need two guys. You need two guys that are supplementary pieces to that Contreras spot in the order. And that's where I look at it and I'm like, okay, so Stephen Kwan, this is going to sound like a weird comparison because you just look at them and how they play and positions and everything, and they could not be more dissimilar. The two guys, the guy that I'm about to compare Stephen Kwan to.
Can I guess? I've got one or two that I'm thinking. My first guess would be Mason Wynn.
No.
Mine's Lars Nootbaar.
That's too similar. Like he's very similar profile to what Stephen Kwan is. Like upside of Mason Wynn offensively is you hope he becomes Stephen Kwan of last year.
Mine was Lars Nootbaar.
Nope. Also similar.
The other one for me was Burley was the other guess.
Nope. Ivan Herrera.
Oh,
well, he's not playing, man.
The reason why I bring up Ivan Herrera is because Stephen Kwan is almost purely, at this point in his career, a batting average plus on-base guy. He gets on base at a high clip because he takes a decent amount of walks, but really it's all built on he is going to have an incredibly high batting average. He's been a consistently right around 300 average type of a player throughout his major league career. Ivan Herrera, now, it's worth noting, there's only 250 plate appearances last year, so we're working with a limited sample size. But even if you go back to his track record in the minors, he was always a player that hit for a high average. It's something that the Cardinals have been lacking in recent seasons, and he could provide it. Ivan Herrera last year was 27% above league average offensively while he was up at the major league level. This dude can hit. And he's done it at every level, and he continues to do it now. It reminds me a little bit of the Randy Arozarena profile. Different. They're not exactly the same. Randy was much more aggressive with his approach at the plate, but they both just always produced. And the problems are similar. They didn't trust Randy because of his defense in the outfield. They don't trust Ivan Herrera because of his defense behind the plate, and it's the reason why they never allowed Randy to get that opportunity, and it's the reason that they haven't provided that opportunity so far to Ivan Herrera. He could be to your lineup what Stephen Kwan is to the Guardians lineup by the end of this upcoming season. High average, high on base, lacking a little bit of pop, but hit for doubles more so than like pure home run power. And then after that, like you look at David Fry, Josh Naylor, some of the other young guys that they have in their lineup, you can pretty much supplement around that with the players that the Guardians have. It takes two guys stepping up. You need Wilson Contreras to match what he did last year. You need Ivan Herrera to be the guy that he was last year, but over an extended run. And you need one other player to step up into that like 30% above league average offensively category. And boom, you're right in this mix as a 8th or 9th best offense in Major League Baseball conversation next year. I think that's how it happens.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
Well, and as Katie told you yesterday, enough with the ifs and wins, because who knows if that's going to happen.
They're not going to hit on everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to flop. It's just a matter of who.
But they've given them, like, Herrera, Walker, Donovan, Nootbaar, Gorman, Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson. They've given themselves so many outs to potentially, so JC, who I didn't mention there, JJ Weatherholt, depending on how quickly he's able to rise through the system. That's 9 players that I just mentioned. If you hit on literally 2 of them, of being not superstars, but really good offensive contributors next year, I think you figured it out.
I think a lot of those guys, though, at least for me, they've shown they're those perfect complementary pieces. I don't know if the star's there. And maybe they can get there, but, like, to me, I think you've got 3 guys that have that ability to get to the star level. And that's why I point Jordan Walker so much, because I think you know what Nolan Gorman's going to be. Can he hit 40 bombs? Yeah, but you're going to see a ton of strikeouts. Ivan Herrera's one that I kind of the jury's still out on, mostly because you just haven't seen that extended run in terms of playtime. Maybe he gets there, but for me, that's why it comes down to Jordan Walker, because I do think you have to have another one of those guys emerge as a star quality player.
And that's why I kind of pointed to the Diamondbacks as to where I think Herrera is interesting, because I still think he's got more home run power in his bat. I think he can do more production-wise from a home run standpoint than Stephen Kwan can.
Agreed.
But it is an interesting comparison to look at. But, like, the reason I point to the Diamondbacks is I look at them and I go, okay, they had one MVP caliber guy in that lineup. And then they had a really good, everyday, 20% above league average guy in Christian Walker.
I think you're underselling what they ended up getting last year out of Jock Peterson.
Well, the reason I don't mention him is because he was a platoon, right? He was platooned with Randall Gritchick, so that's kind of how they created that third bat was a platoon.
He had a 900 OPS last year.
Which I'm okay with. Like, I love, if you're going to do that, I think that's totally fine. I know Cardinals fans don't like hearing that. I don't know where you're not going to have a platoon guy doing that this year. They don't really have a platoon spot this year.
Unless it's DH with Burleson / Herrera.
Maybe.
You could see that, but Herrera's been really good against righty, so I don't think you need to.
But the reason I bring them up is you look at their lineup, Gabriel Moreno, 5% above league average. Geraldo Perdomo, 1% above league average. Luis Gurriel, 9%. Corbin Carroll, 7%. Jake McCarthy, 9%. It was a lot of death by 1,000 cuts, right? And we talk about depth of scoring for the Blues. The Diamondbacks didn't kill you with one or two guys, right? They had dudes in the lineup. They put up a ton of runs because they had guys they had 5 guys in their lineup that were 5 to 10% above league average.
That's the Cardinals.
And I think that's the Cardinals because I don't think Nootbaar's ever going to be 20% above league average. I think odds are he's mostly going to fall into that 5 to 10 range. Worst case scenario, I think that's Donovan. I think Donovan can be that guy that's like 10, 15%. Worst case, though, he's a little bit below that 10% mark. Alec Burleson, same guy for that. Mason Wynn, I think same guy for that. Maybe he does have more upside than I'm giving him credit for. BK's right. He hits for more power.
But I think those are probably all guys that are slightly above league average.
But that's where you get there. The guys that you need to be the 20% above league average are the Jordan Walker, the Wilson Contreras, and then whoever that third bat might be. The Cardinals are making it sound like they feel like Gorman's that. I don't know that he is. I think he's more of the league average, hits like 30 bombs kind of guy. But that's okay again. That is okay to have in your lineup.
Maybe that is your version of what they got last year out of Jock Peterson. It's possible that Gorman becomes Jock.
Sure.
Because if he's just terrible against lefties, Jock Peterson last year, over the course of 350 at-bats, had 23 home runs and a slugging percentage of .515. You would sign up for that every day of the week. Now, it's not the same volume as you're expecting because he didn't play every day. So he's not going to have the opportunity to hit 35 home runs. But when he was out there, that dude was awesome. And he absolutely raked because he was put into positions to succeed. And if that's what you end up getting out of Gorman, it is disappointing relative to what the expectations are, but it's still a really good hitter that, like, Jock Peterson's probably going to get $20 million this year from somebody.
Yeah.
That is the type of role that you could see from Gorman long term. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we're talking to Mike McKenna. Quickly, the junk drawer is next year on 101 ESPN.
All Blues coverage is right here. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
All right, boys, I leave on Sunday. I'm
Hallelujah.
leaving on Sunday, going down to Mexico City, going to be down there for a week. This is the flight that I booked that's on the Mexican version of Spirit Airlines, where God only knows if I'm going to get there. My bags may or may not arrive with me. The hope is that I get there on time. The expectation is that I'll be at least a couple hours late. How do you guys feel like this trip's going to go for your boy BK?
Oh, disaster.
Am I going to end feeling good about it?
No.
Am I going to get some kind of food poisoning while I'm down there?
Oh, well, I definitely know you're not going to be back the Monday after we get here.
I don't think you get food poisoning because it sounds like you're dropping a ton of money because you're very rich
Jeez.
on all the food that you're going to
We're doing a lot of
there.
street food. That's the goal.
Yeah, you will get food poisoning. And I don't think you're going to end up in Mexico City. I think you're going to end up in like Mexico City, Louisiana or something like
okay.
that. Because you're taking
Like
some
if you go to
jacked up
there's
flight.
like a Paris, Texas or
Yeah.
something.
You're gonna end up in Mexico City in like a different state of the United States.
So
That'd
I
be
checked
fun.
yesterday on my flights. I just wanted to make sure that I was good on everything, right? I checked the flight on the leg from San Antonio to Mexico City, which is this one. That's the Spirit Airlines version. And you like have to pay extra for your bag, right? It's like you get a seat and your bag gets a seat, basically, is the way that this works.
That always is.
$50 for you, $50 for your
Coach.
bag.
I don't think we're going to see you again.
So
I think you'll be stuck in Mexico City.
I wanted to make sure, okay, am I good on my luggage? And it's very difficult to figure out if I'm actually good on my luggage or not. I genuinely do not know, as of today, if I can take my luggage onto this flight. Because it says on one place, like, yeah, you're good. On another place, it says, no, you still have to pay for your luggage. So we'll see. We'll see how that ends up going.
I can't wait to get a text. You say you fly out. Where are you supposed to fly out of San Antonio?
So
then?
I go from here to Atlanta, from Atlanta to San Antonio, from San Antonio down to Mexico
I
City.
can't wait for a text at like 4 o'clock on Sunday, and it's from BK, and it's a picture, and it's like duct tape is on the plane. That's how they have a seatbelt. The seatbelt is you just grab duct tape and
What's that movie, Final Destination? He's
yourself
going to
in.
look out his wing and he's going to see like one of the wheels is like spinning the opposite direction.
They do to me what we did to Alex when he had to sit
Yeah.
in his chair in the duct tape for a day.
Would you like a seatbelt, sir? I would. All right.
The fact that there's so much like
You guys think they'll have
uncertainty.
Wi-Fi on that flight?
No.
Hell no. They're not going to have technology on that plane.
Yeah, that is not going to be.
I was able to choose my seat, so that's nice.
If there's a seat,
Yeah,
it's
there's going to be like
fun.
seven
The picture's
seats.
going to be just BK sitting on the floor, luggage next to him. Good luck, man.
Yeah, you're going to get food poisoning.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him.
Yeah, I don't think we see you until after the new year.
2025.
So, like,
I'll
if
see you guys.
he disappears, can I get my name on the show or no?
Yeah, but it's second.
Okay, I'll take it.
That's how this
What's
works.
it going to be called? Is it going to be called Ferrario and Friends?
No, Ferrario
I'll
and
give
T-Bone.
him-
My
I'll give him
name's
the
on
name. I'm not you.
Would you go with Ferrario and T-Bone, Ferrario and Tanner?
there. I mean, I think T-Bone and
and
Ferrario sounds better than Ferrario and T-Bone, but
Sorry.
I'm okay with it being second.
Go Alex and T-Bone.
Okay.
Alex and T-Bone?
Alex
okay.
and T-Bone. I like that one. That one
I'm in.
works. Yeah.
We need to come up with a cool nickname for you. Like T-Bone and...
It's Ferrario, dude.
That's his last name. That's
Yeah,
not
but
his
it's the-
nickname.
That's what he goes by.
I've been called Ferrario probably my entire life, so.
My friend in high school, we called him Coker, but that was his last name. You can't call that a nickname.
Yeah, I've been called Ferrario my entire, like, from middle school up and through college, I've been called Ferrario.
I Rock
Yeah.
on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL, said he's going to have a trip to San Antonio instead of a trip down to Mexico City. That sounds about
Your
right.
plane's going to run out of fuel at some point and have to, like, stop off and reload, and then it won't be able to start back
I
up.
hear the
So
Riverwalk is beautiful this time of the year.
It is nice. I've been seen.
Go to the Wax Museum. It'll be great.
There's a wax museum?
I didn't
In
know
San
there was one
Antonio.
in there.
It's basically big. My favorite way of describing San Antonio is imagine Branson, but like a little nicer and a little bigger.
Oh, well, nothing's nicer than Branson.
With a
And with a
Riverwalk.
Riverwalk.
Yeah.
Nothing's nicer than Branson. And Branson has a river walk. Like,
It's got Table Rock Lake, if you want to call that the Riverwalk.
and then they got like a little riverside area right next to it. So, same thing.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. We'll break all things down Blues next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues Talk more often. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
News to pass along in Major League Baseball before we get to sit down with our friend Mike McKenna. He's joining us in studio here on 101 ESPN. According to John Heyman, it looks like the Kyle Tucker deal is likely to get done to the Cubs. It's getting close, according to Heyman. Tucker is likely to go to Chicago, and in return, the Houston Astros would get Isaac Paredes and Cam Smith, one of the top prospects in minor league baseball for the Chicago Cubs. So Kyle Tucker looking close to the Chicago Cubs. We'll break that down here in just a little bit. But right now it's time to talk about the St. Louis Blues with our friend, former NHL goalie. He is Mike McKenna, joining us as he does each and every Friday on the show. Mike, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
I'm really good. You know why? Because my audio is going to be clear as can be. I'm 3 feet from you here, guys.
Well, you don't have to worry about hammers behind you. You don't have to worry about dropping every 5 seconds.
We're through the first phase of construction, and we're open now. And, yeah, we can start doing this in person every week, which is super cool. But we got a game to talk about, don't we? And a week leading up to it. But, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but watching the game last night, was it entertaining at least?
The third period
I liked.
Yeah. The first two periods, it felt like they were still trying to figure out what state and what time zone they were playing in.
I agree, but it was like I'm sitting there with my daughter watching it, and it's like, oh, they're done, right? Celebrini scores a third. It's 3-1.
I like watching Celebrini. That guy's entertaining. Holy cow.
And you know a guy's good when they score, and immediately JK goes, oh, he's got some hands on him, right? And it's like, if the opposing play-by-play guy has really been aware of how good of a player is. It's real, and he can play. But it went to 3-1. I was like, time to keep working on Macadoodles. And I pulled out the laptop, and then they flipped the script a little bit and came back and made it a game and did some good things. So I was entertained for the majority of the second half of it. But
I've felt that way under Jim Montgomery. Like since he took over, we talked about this the other day. Actually, I can't quantify this. I don't know how to, but the style of play, especially recently with that West Coast Canada trip, because you're going up against legitimate contenders for most of those games, it feels like they're playing playoff-style hockey right now. And it's just much more fun to watch. It feels like they're more engaged.
There's an energy to Jim Montgomery. And this is why he's been successful as a coach. It permeates through a team. So when I was in the Dallas organization, Ken Hitchcock was the head coach. And
also permeates amongst the team.
Yeah, you got to get it deep. Speed! I mean, I'd be sitting there backing up games saying, Spaz, get it deep. You got to get it deep. Work it to the point, Spaz. I actually really enjoy Ken Hitchcock. Speaking to him one-on-one
oh my God,
it's really engaging. But he is known for that on the bench. It's hilarious. But I remember that year, though, because Hitch moved out of the coaching position while we were on a deep American League playoff run. And they hired Jim Montgomery. Now, and this was probably mid-May. We played clear till June. I remember Jim came flying in the Austin locker room. Was like, "Hey, boys, what's up? How's it going here?" And it was like, wow, this guy's got an energy to him where instantly it felt like there was a gravitational bond to him as a coach. And to me, and kind of what I just described to you about Hitch is like the old school way of like, come on, guys, Whereas with Monty, it's just like, you have to be better here. I know you're better. You have to be better here. And NHL players respect that.
Yeah.
They take criticism and feedback when a person cares about you, and they're not just speaking down to you. And I know that because in life I'm bad about that. Okay, it's something that I've consciously been trying to life is and not knowing you do it.
Yeah.
There's something about Monty and the way he interacts with people that I think the players, that energy just feeds through them. They don't feel like they're out of games.
I'll tell you the part that I've noticed, Mike, just in these, 8 games that he's coached. Every single time that there is a stoppage in play, a whistle, a timeout, if you watch that bench, entire group of guys, and they are all locked into him. There have been times we've seen in the past, not just with Drew Bannister, but even towards the end with Craig Berube. He would be talking, and there'd be guys skating around, looking down, looking around. the last few times that I've noticed it, it has been 20 guys staring at Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, and that's the energy I'm talking about, where when you're up and down the bench, when you're making contact with your players, you know, whether it's eye contact, whether it's verbal, even if it's just, hey, good job, that shit. Like, when you do these things on a bench, whether it's peewee hockey, squirt hockey, your players know that you're vested in them. And people crave feedback now. The worst thing you can do is just stand there and watch it unfold, right? Like, you have to give some feedback. And I think he's commanding in that way, but I also think, and this is it's support, right? Mm-hmm. Steve Ott, I mean, fantastic, right? And what the rest of that team has on a coaching staff behind them. But I think Drew will get another chance. But he's also probably going to look at Monty and go, yeah, maybe I could bring some more energy too.
And just a heads up, Jordan, we are getting a little bit of a feedback here. I don't know if we put something back into the return there, but wanted to let you know that we are getting the return here out of the studio. We're talking to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, here on 101 ESPN. Mike, when you look at some of the young players and what they're able to get,
move last night to pull the puck close to his feet, right through the D's feet, top shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a dude that's just been grinding goals out, and you're now seeing him unlock some of that real sniping potential, which is exciting. But I think, again, with Kyrou, and really Kyrou, like, he still needs somebody to nurture him in some ways with his game. Like, it's a constant, to me, I guarantee the video sessions are very fruitful with him. Like, you need to see why you're doing things and where it's going, and to be approached the right way to know how you can do it. I think with someone with Holloway, it's really just give the guy the leash and let him run. Like, in Edmonton, he never was really there.
Yeah.
How's it going to be there when you got Draisaitl and McDavid and some others hanging out around you that are just going to take up that air? He's got some runway here, guys. And it's like, it's exciting as a player to know that you have some leash. There's not crazy expectations on you, right? Like, Holloway's found change for the team, where they got him at, price point and in years. It's just, man, Thomas is, at least from a recognition standpoint, I think if you asked around the league, people would be very aware of how good that player is.
We talked to Jeff Merrick a couple of days ago, and he said the same thing. He's like, I think he's one of the most underappreciated distributors in the entire league.
Yeah, and it's not just again, him too. It's the goal scoring that we've seen over the last year and a half, just being willing to get it off the blade and how it's improved his game. So there's just all these little parts to the team that to me are exciting, even in a game where they were out, but they clearly were dead tired. Come on, guys. Like, I've been there before, and you're going to the rink and you're slugging as many coffees as you can. You're just going, let's get through this. For them to at least fight back and make a game out of it in a classic trap game against a bad team, but which also, by the way, has one of the best players in the game.
Right.
That also has a hungry goaltender in Georgiev.
Not the previous version of the Sharks. This is a very, like, last year's Sharks were lifeless from start to finish. Yeah. This team, like, they've got Toffoli, who's like a real NHL player. They've got Celebrini, who's a stud and is only going to continue getting better. Like, they've got aspects to this team this year that are at least interesting, whereas previously they were just a dead team from day one.
And those games suck as a player, Mike, because you know that you're sluggish as a player. And I think even Neighbors said this in the last game. You got to get to the third period in that type of game, because that's when your legs show back up. The first two periods, you're thinking this is like skating in cement.
You know what you don't want to be is down 1-0 within 2 minutes.
Yeah, you ain't wrong there.
And there's just no way around it. And the physical tiredness that you face really isn't the challenge. It's the mental tiredness. It's that fatigue that you have. And it's really hard to put together, let's be real, 50 minutes, much less 60 minutes when you're that tired. And you see it, like the bad pinches that led to the odd man rushes the other way. And it kind of just compounds, you know, like those bad bounces seem to happen when you're tired, right? Parayko goes and slides, makes a great play to break it up. Where's it go? Right back on Celebrini's stick.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those games, but there are some positives to take from it.
So, Mike, your area of expertise, goaltending, long time in the National Hockey League, American Hockey League, playing goalie. the guy that is getting brought up again is Jordan Binnington. I think it's 4 straight games that he's given up 3 or more goals. I look at Binnington over these last few games, and it's like, yeah, you can't be giving up 3 or 4, but it feels more like they're putting him in a tough spot rather than Binnington's not coming up with the big save.
You know what I've always gauged how a team is playing on defensively is the number of odd man rushes they give up.
Yeah.
And categorically, have there not been more in the last 4 or 5 games?
Yeah.
Now, I do think this is a byproduct, though, of how up-tempo Montgomery likes to play. It also shows, though, that you've got to have your head screwed on to play that way, and when you do, it is effective, and you don't give up those odd man rushes. It's when you have lapses that it can go that direction. And we've seen the last couple of years, Binnington, Hofer the same, have covered up a lot of those mistakes. I think you've just seen some go in. You get 3 or 4 games, yeah, you allow 3 or more a few times. You just, as a goalie, as long as it's not a touchdown, like I know that sounds crazy.
That this season.
Yeah, fans would feel awful about that. But how many 1-goal games for the Blues? It shows that at least if Binnington's allowed a tough 1 or 2, he stayed in it, kept his team in the game for the most part.
And we talked about this earlier today. We talked about it yesterday with Joey. Last time, prior to last night, unfortunately, that they did not earn at least a point when scoring 3 or more goals was on October 11th against Vegas in the 3rd game of the season.
Yeah.
So if they score 3, typically they're getting enough goaltending to where, all right, we're going to have a chance to at least get a point to get it to overtime. Last night just wasn't one of those nights, unfortunately.
Nothing about the Blues that concerns me less than goaltending, really. And even when I love watching Joel Hofer, guys. Like, I'm a massive fan of both of these goaltenders. And it's funny because Benner and both of them are such good puck handlers that right off the bat, when something goes wrong with, again, under 2 minutes in, Binnington plays one and it just doesn't go right. It's like, you're really good at that, and that never happens. But it's just so glaring. It's like if you play 50 or 60 games a year, you're going to give away 2 or 3 goals as a goalie. It happens. But Binnington also creates 7, 8, 9 more than some other goaltenders. Hofer does because they're so good with it. So you take the good with the bad.
Yeah. So last thing that I wanted to get to here with you, the Blues have about 10 days now before we get to that small Christmas break, but a Christmas break nonetheless, where they'll have a few days off prior to that stretch run that includes the Winter Classic. What do you want to see from them? Next 6, 7 games, what do you want to see in this stretch before we get to that Christmas break?
It's easy to say consistency. I do think I'd like to see more than anything a smarter game at the blue lines. I'd like to see less outman rushes against on occasion. But I'd also like to see just a little bit more continuity in how they're working within lines and with teammates, right? I think it's still been a bit of a players coming back in and out of the lineup. We've seen Thomas and Buchnevich and Kyrou back together. We've seen them split. We've seen Shen move in and out. We've seen the deep pairings all low. I think now after this stretch of Montgomery being in charge, I think it's time to get to the point now where we're figuring out what works the best. Whatever he believes is that case, to get that, and it's not as much to me. Listen, results always matter. They do. But I'd like to see that comfort level of a team who is just machine-like. Here's our lines. Here's our D pairs. We're rolling out Benner 2 games to Hofer's every one, and we know what we're getting. I'd like to see the team settle into that role. You never know with injuries or anything else. But I think that continuity would go a long way, especially even with Monty being able to look and go, hey, walks, facts, man, get out there, like, do your thing, right? Like, we know where you're going. Here's your time and place. I think it would help the club. I
think that's something that they're getting to. I thought we might get there last night, and then they broke up that top line again, and we'll see kind of what they decide to do there. So it's something that they're working towards. I think they're getting closer, and I think the next piece of that is, like, what happens with Brandon Saad. And if they can figure that spot out and they can lock it in, I think you'll start seeing a little more consistency.
It just feels like you're stalled until you get those 2 other prospects that you're hoping to be such big pieces of this future, because you can't go anywhere until you see what they look like, but you also can't rush that to the NHL level.
Agreed.
All right, Mike, we'll get you out of here on this. You join us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. You do so on behalf of the great Macadoodles.
Hey-o.
What do you guys have going on right now? What can people be looking forward to?
We're getting into the home stretch towards Christmas and the holidays here. So I'll tell you what has happened in the store that's really cool. We've lowered pricing across the board. We're as competitive as anybody. You walk in our store and you're going to find our prices right where they should be with anyone in town. And we keep adding little pieces, right? We're adding to our bourbon collection. We've been adding in this week. I'll tell you right now, I got 4 cases of Castle and Key weeded, allocated, sitting on the shelves, ready for you.
Hey-o.
And I did get more Buffalo Trace in. Even though it's not totally allocated, I've gotten some. So this weekend, especially tomorrow, I'm going to have a big run of cool stuff sitting on the shelves in the bourbon aisle, but we've also, again, really slashed pricing in other areas. Our vodka's price competitive as can be, and wine just keeps killing, man. Like, we've been running out really nice wines, 15 to 20, tasting 7 or 8 on try. How many did you try when you came in, BK?
Think now.
Well, I know.
Once again, T-Bone.
They're small pours.
Tiny
we
pours,
had
tiny.
8 tastings while we were out
thimble.
there.
And you split them all.
Just a little
You
one.
split
It was
them all.
Me and my wife, we went out
Luca
there.
too?
Yep.
Nope, we did not have Luca with us,
Okay.
but it was fantastic. It was great because you get to do it. You try it while you're there, and then you decide, okay, this is the bottle that I want. Because sometimes you walk in,
Yep.
you know, you're like, oh, I typically like Oregon Pinots, but I don't know about this one. And you get to try the stuff that they've got there ready to go for you.
The big
Try
thing-
some stuff that you might not otherwise as well.
Yeah, and the big cool thing we got some of these big magnums coming in for Christmas, and again, like we're priced right there with anybody. Some of these top ends, Camus, Cake Bread, Duckhorn, it's all in the building. We're excited to get going for Christmas.
Well, check them out. That's exactly what I did prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm going to do the same thing prior to the Christmas holiday as well. Mike, we appreciate the time as always, man. We'll see you soon.
I'm just so happy we were in person.
Amen to that.
We still found a way to have some kind of an audio issue, even with you out here, but we got it fixed. Appreciate him being able to come out here. He joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Again, he's courtesy of Macadoodles out in Darden Prairie. Great spot. Be sure to go out there, check them out. Coming up next, the odds to win the NL Central are a little telling on how people are viewing this division nationally. Plus, is there going to be a new superstar in the division? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
More exclusive Blues talk. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, so it looks like this is probably going to happen. I was apparently dead wrong earlier today when I said I don't buy this Kyle Tucker to the Cubs buzz, but the Cubs, according to Ken Rosenthal, are close to acquiring Kyle Tucker from the Astros for a package which will be led by Isaac Paredes, an infielder that they acquired at the deadline. Put a pin in that. We'll get to that here in just a minute. They're also expected to deal Hayden Wisniewski in this deal. He's a pitching prospect, kind of been a swing arm for them. I guess probably the closest comparison would be like a Matthew Liberatore for the Cardinals.
He's a right-handed version of him.
And then Cam Smith, a third base prospect for them that is a pretty good hitter, but he's top 5 prospect in their system right now. So it feels a little underwhelming for a guy like Kyle Tucker, who is legitimately one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. Isaac Paredes is a solid player, but he doesn't really have defensive value. He's had a couple of underwhelming seasons over the last couple of years offensively. I would assume that he'd be pretty good in Houston with the short porch in left field, but who knows? And then it's a couple of prospects that are hopefully they can become something for you, potential back end of the rotation guy, and then a third base prospect. So that's what they ended up potentially getting in Tucker if this ends up getting done. It would be a 3-for-1 according to Ken Rosenthal. Let's start out with that. What do you guys think about the Cubs potentially landing Kyle Tucker, who's one of the best hitters in the sport?
I mean, good for them to be aggressive and go after this guy that's available, but Buster Olney just tweeted it out a little bit ago saying, like, this is the same spot the Yankees were just in with Juan Soto, and unless this Cubs ownership is willing to give out a contract larger than what Jason Hayward was, $184 million, it might be a one-year play.
Oh, this is a $400 million player.
Yeah, so, but he's saying, like, this Cubs team doesn't hand out that type of money. So it's good that a team like that is saying, like, dude, this guy's available. Let's go get him. And a hell of a move by the Cubs to flip Isaac Paredes for this, because Paredes wasn't very good for them when they acquired him last year. And you just flipped it for a guy that is going to be a monumental piece for your team this season. But to me, it's a great move, but you got to lock him up if you're going to make this move, because 1 year, the Cubs aren't in a position to where they can go win it with 1 year of Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, that's where I find the move a little puzzling, as if you're going to do this, like what the Yankees did in the Juan Soto, is, one, you do it and see if you can re-sign him. But also, if you know you're not going to be able to re-sign him, are you in that window to win? And if you're the Cubs, I don't know how you get to the conclusion you're there. Now, it's not like they gave up a ton in this deal, but I just do find their decision-making a little puzzling. I mean, they haven't even get out a contract that's worth $200 million in guaranteed money before. So why should I believe they're going to exceed $400? Maybe they're still in on something else on the market, and they are going to finally push and go all in on 1 year. Maybe they keep Bellinger now, and they make this a little bit more interesting, go with an outfield of Bellinger and center and with Tucker and Wright. It's a really interesting move by the Cubs. I don't think it makes them division favorites yet. They still got a lot of holes to plug up, but I like the move for the aggressive nature they're going with. It's just a matter of, can they re-sign him?
I love it. I really do. When you've got an opportunity to get this kind of a player, I think you go do it. And then you figure out the rest when you get there. Like, Isaac Paredes was not going to be a big part of their future plans, man. Guy can't play defense at third. He plays there. That is his position, but he's not very good there. And Cam Smith, like, who knows? Maybe he becomes a good player. Maybe he doesn't. We've seen with the Cardinals, guys can become really highly touted prospects, and then they just don't adjust at a huge way at the major league level. And then Wisniewski was a pitcher that at one point had real prospect status. I remember when he came up, and he, I believe at one point, started against the Cardinals a couple of years ago. It's like, yeah, he's decent. Nothing more, nothing less. Just he's okay. And when you've got guys like that and you're trading them for, I don't want to undersell this. Kyle Tucker is a top 10 position player in Major League Baseball that they're acquiring right now. That's crazy to be able to get that for a dude that you didn't necessarily want to be a part of your long-term plans. And then a couple of, like, middling prospects. It's a hell of a deal for the Cubs. And even if it is a one-year deal, and he gets there this season, and then he ends up walking for a comp pick next year because they'll at least QO him. Or they get to the deadline and decide, you know what, let's go ahead and flip him to somebody else. We didn't end up being as good as we thought we would this year. Cool. You gave your fans the opportunity to see Kyle Tucker in the middle of your order for a year and gave yourself the out as a team of being good this year. Because you're not going to be good without this kind of a bat in the middle of the order. They lack star power the way that the Cardinals have lacked star power in recent seasons. They had nobody that you could point to and be like, oh, that dude is going to project to be 40% above league average offensively this year. Kyle Tucker is that player. So I'll give them full credit. And to our point on them getting a little creative here, I love what they did with Paredes, man. At the deadline, they trade a third baseman for a third baseman. They get Paredes, who this was reported, I think, last week by Ken Rosenthal, if I'm not mistaken, who said, hey, at the deadline, they knew, we're not sure if Paredes is really going to be a part of our long-term plans. But we believe because of the amount of control that he has remaining and because of the profile of hitter that he is, that other teams will be interested in Isaac Paredes, even if we're not. So we'll do this for a couple of months, see what it looks like for us, and then trade him in the offseason and flip him for something that we do think can be a part of our long-term plans. That's really smart managing. That's just a really good way to go about things at the deadline when you're a team that is not really in it to compete in any meaningful way, and now it potentially is the number one reason why they were able to land Kyle Tucker. One other thing on this. Shame on you, Yankees. Shame on you. What are you doing? What are the Yankees doing right now, dude?
They just got Devin
How did
Williams.
they not get this done?
They just got Devin Williams.
This was the most obvious opportunity for the Yankees to go out there and get a star. You lost Juan Soto. Okay, it happens. We've all seen that happen before, right? Thought he was going to be back. It didn't work out. They, across town, have an owner that is just willing to spend all of the money. There is no amount that he wasn't going to be willing to spend on Juan Soto. Well, Kyle Tucker's the next best thing that you can find. And honestly, if you're the Yankees, just go ahead and give him $400 of the $700 million that you were willing to give to Juan Soto a week ago. For them to not get this done is incredibly disappointing, and a Yankees fan should be furious today.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Like, their pitcher that they could have sent in this deal would have been Clark Schmidt, right? They could have moved Clark Schmidt as the Wasenski of this piece. Yep. They could have thrown in a top 10 prospect-ish for that guy. Now, if they, like Paredes, I don't know if they had a piece like that to go on this deal, but you could have found something like that. I'm surprised the Yankees weren't more involved in this to try and go out and get Kyle Tucker, because he makes all the sense in the world, right? That short porch in right field, for Yankee Stadium, that is lefty heaven for any baseball hitter. I'm genuinely surprised. It makes me wonder if they're going to do something else on the market that they wanted money for.
Their version probably would have been Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah.
Giving up Jazz, which, I mean, that's
Jazz,
an easy move if you're them.
Yeah, he's probably a little better than Paredes defensively, but it's kind of the same thing,
I think the question,
right?
though, is what's the move for the Yankees? Like, I saw Rosenthal say, like, this gives them the opportunity to go get Alex Bregman. That's fine,
probably what
but,
you do.
like, I mean, your outfield still is kind of...
Yeah, end up with a worse contract. I think Tucker's contract will age way better than Bregman.
Yeah. Well,
he's just a better player.
And you haven't improved defensively if you're the Yankees. Like, defensively, you're still a bad team.
He's a couple years younger than Bregman is. He's just a much better hitter, better overall player, in my opinion, as well. Now, there's some real injury questions with Kyle Tucker. He has not been able to stay healthy as often as you would like to see, especially this past season. But other than that, I would much rather have Kyle Tucker than Alex Bregman. It's an interesting spot, man. It sounds like the Yankees are also pursuing Cody Bellinger, according to John Heyman. They're considering Pete Alonso, given the fact that Tucker is close to a trade with the Cubs. So the Yankees are pivoting, but I would just forget Bellinger, forget Alonso. Just go get this deal done with Kyle Tucker. Apparently, though, that's
personally
a thing in the past.
I kind of hope the Alonso thing happens. That's just great. Yankees to the Mets, Mets to the Yankees. Yeah, give me some rivalry.
It's a good storyline. I do wonder what this means for a potential landing spot for Nolan Arenado as well. I would imagine if the Yankees are likely going to go get an Alex Bregman type, well, that takes them out of the Nolan Arenado sweepstakes. Houston is now out of the Arenado sweepstakes, most likely because they have Paredes. So the Red Sox, I suppose, would be the natural landing spot as one of the teams that could potentially leave, or the Angels. The Angels would have been the landing
spot. Still, just wild that that's in this conversation.
And here we are. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, it is time for NFL Weekend Look Ahead. What is the best game of the week? What is the upset of the week? What is the overreaction game of the week? We'll get into all of that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues lost to the San Jose Sharks by a score of 4-2. They're off today and back in action tomorrow, kicking off a back-to-back in Dallas with puck drop at 7. And then on Sunday, they're back home to take on the Rangers with puck drop at 5 o'clock. The guys talked Blues hockey with Chris Kerber and Mike McKenna today. So if you missed those interviews or anything else from today's show, make sure you check out the podcast page at 101ESPN.com or from the free 101 mobile app. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into our NFL weekend look ahead here in just a moment. But to put a bow on our last conversation, the equivalent of what the Cubs are giving up, and by the way, this deal is officially done, according to Jeff Passan. Kyle Tucker will be going to the Cubs for Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wesneski. Am I pronouncing that correct?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Was
sure.
Wisniewski.
And Cam Smith. So that is a done deal. Kyle Tucker is going to the Cubs. The comparison for this with the Cardinals would have been something roughly Andre Palante, Nolan Gorman, and Thomas Sajaci to the Astros for Kyle Tucker. Would you guys have done that?
Yes.
Let me ask that first.
Yes.
Would you guys have done that if the Cardinals were not planning to re-sign Kyle Tucker?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's going to be the next interesting thing here is to find out what is the plan for the Cubs. Are they going to extend him? Are they going to give him the $400 million that he's looking for? Or are they just doing this as a rental?
This shouldn't even be a question. When you acquire this guy, you lock him up because he's the main piece of your team moving forward.
Easier said than done. But if the player doesn't want to resign, if the player says, I want to get to market, especially after seeing what the prices were this offseason for
then they don't trade for him.
Or you get the guy in place, you get the likelihood that you're having a QO at a minimum next year. And if he ends up loving it in Chicago and decides, you know what, I want to stay here long term, Alex, where's the stuff now? Chicago, you've got the one up on everybody else because you're the incumbent as opposed to other teams that are having to
How'd that work
convince
for
him
the
to go
Yankees?
elsewhere. Not well.
Oh.
He went across town, though. There's no other team.
Maybe if his
reality
teammates
in
would have
Chicago.
called
Say, there's the White Sox.
Yeah, there's no other team in Chicago
Granted,
that they're battling
the biggest
with.
contract they've handed out hasn't even exceeded $100 million. So
Yeah, and they trade
probably
their
would do
guys.
it.
They trade their guys before they pay them.
All right, so that is where
Can't you
things
just hear
are
that
at.
song in your head again now?
Within
Hey,
the division.
Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are gonna win
No, but I'm
today.
sure you're going to sing that for us at the beginning of this season with
I still ain't
T-Bone
picking the
3.
Cubs to win this dang division.
They should go out and sign Jack Flaherty or Corbin Burns. Like, go get a frontline starter, and now you're a really interesting team suddenly.
Yeah, Flaherty makes all the sense in the world.
Get Tanner Scott, too.
Oh,
Put him at the back end of the
Boy.
bullpen.
Wow.
They
You're
opened
building
up,
a World
dude.
Series
they
team.
open up the wallet in Chicago finally.
If they go make a couple of signings, they become really interesting now that they have a legitimate middle of the order back.
They've
All right.
got biblical losses.
Sunday, huge slate this week in the NFL. There are no more bye weeks in the NFL, so we get a doubleheader on Monday night. Sunday night is a good game between the Packers and the Seahawks. You get like half of the slate is noon. A ton of games at 3 o'clock. Love the way that they split this up this week in the NFL. Alex, the biggest game, the number one matchup that you're looking forward to on Sunday is what?
It is at 3:25 p.m., and it is the Lions hosting the Bills because
so
that is
good.
my Super Bowl right there. I can't wait to watch these two teams go head-to-head.
It's such a good one. This is a Super Bowl preview, potentially.
This is the Super Bowl I want, by the way. Like, if you could ask me an ideal setup for the playoffs, AFC Championship game between the Bills and Chiefs, NFC Championship, Lions and Eagles, and then you get Lions and Bills in the Super Bowl.
There's no other
I know, I
second
took the
game,
easy one.
But if there was a second one, and I think it's more of a, okay, what is this team's ceiling kind of a game, it's the Steelers at Eagles.
It's another good one.
I'm fascinated. No, I almost took the Steelers in our pick'em challenge on the point.
Interesting. I
too.
almost took the Eagles.
Really?
I almost took the Steelers.
I don't like the Steelers without George Pickens. That's what makes me
That's
really,
fair.
really cautious about them.
And that's why maybe it's a little unfair to say, oh, we'll see what their ceiling is in this game against the Eagles. But if they can slow down that offense in the running game, that's why I almost took the Steelers, because I think they can stop the run. And if they can do that, we've talked about it, I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to beat you through the air. So I think that's the second best game of this weekend because I totally agree. Lions-Bills is by far number one.
I can't believe I'm saying this, and it's another 3 o'clock one. Get your NFL Red Zone going for Sunday, and then have that second screen going with Bills Lions, or be like me and be on a Spirit Airlines heading down to Mexico City.
Mexico City, Texas.
Colts versus Broncos is a really fun, entertaining matchup, man. I think Bo Nix is playing some really good football right now. Anthony Richardson has looked better, although not perfect, since his return to the lineup. And if the Colts win this game, they're very much in the mix for that final wild card spot. If the Broncos win it, though, they all but lock it up in that final wild card spot. They would be 9-5 at that point in time. Very likely will finish the season with at least 10 wins, and I don't think they end up dropping out after getting to 10. So that's one of the most compelling ones just because of what it means, the stakes that are in play for that game. It's the other one that I would throw in here. Alex, what do you have for an upset pick going into this weekend? Do you have a team that's a decent underdog that you think can win outright?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a decent underdog, but I do think the Panthers beat the Cowboys.
Well, they're a favorite.
No, they weren't. They were a +3, weren't they?
They are -3.
-3.
Okay.
That's what you have in the pick.
No, I don't.
No,
he
I
does.
do. Oh,
I thought the Panthers were the
you
underdog
did that. I was
in
like,
that
wait,
one.
how'd you just mix up a pick that you
I
had?
totally thought the Panthers were the underdog in that one. Okay, well, I'll go to another one. I think the Patriots beat the Cardinals.
Dude, I seriously thought about that pick.
It's on the road. Drake May's
Really
been playing
thought about
good.
it.
Their offense in general, like you look at, and I think one of their players was talking about how, like, yeah, our best weapons really aren't available to us. But I don't like the Cardinals anymore. I think the Cardinals have fallen flat. I think the Patriots have the better defense, which will stop Kyler Murray in that offense. And then you're just talking about Drake May if they can just grind it out for a little bit. So 5.5, I think, is what it was at. I think the Patriots win that straight up.
For me, I'm going with the one I said, Steelers. I think the Steelers end up beating the Eagles. I know they're without George Pickens. They've been playing. That is a big factor in this. But, I mean, we just talked about the Eagles last week about their offense being like, we're not doing anything offensively through the air. The Steelers are the team that Mike Tomlin's going to prepare you to stop the run. He's going to slow down the run and make you beat him with your weakness. And I don't think Jalen Hurts will be able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is probably going to hit the under of 43.5. But that's exactly the way that the Steelers want that game to go.
All right, I've got a few for you. Wouldn't bet it. I'm super nervous heading into this weekend, boys. The left tackle situation for the Kansas City Chiefs going up against Myles Garrett. Good luck. That ain't going to be pretty. The Browns +4 at home against the Chiefs. I could see it happening. Seahawks are a home underdog against the Packers as well. You guys know I love the Packers. That's a really tough spot. That place gets nuts at night. That stadium is really difficult to play in general. Seahawks are a solid team, even if not spectacular. I could see the Seahawks finding a way to pull that one out. And then the other one, I picked this one in our Pick'em Challenge. Dolphins +3 on the road at the Houston Texans. I think the Dolphins end up winning that one outright. Last question for you. Heading into this week's Sunday slate, what is the overreaction game going into this weekend, Alex? What is the game we'll watch on Sunday, and then on Monday, the screaming shows on television will be telling us this is the most meaningful thing that happened over the weekend?
I mean, I think it's going to be that Steelers-Eagles game because I'm under the same impression as T-Bone to where the Steelers are going to either win this or cover at the very least. And if that happens, the screaming heads are going to be talking about this Eagles team like, they can't even beat the Steelers that don't have George Pickens. I think everybody's going to be complaining about Jalen Hurts after that game. And I'm still not as concerned, although I don't like Nick Sirianni. I think that offense is at least the second best in the NFC, regardless of what happens versus the Steelers.
For me, I'm going Sunday Night Football. I think it could be where if the Seahawks beat the Packers, everybody will go start talking about, hey, the Seahawks are the ones that are in the driver's seat in the NFC West. Again, I don't think that's the case. People will kind of forget that the Rams won on Thursday night to keep themselves in this race. They're the ones that are in the driver's seat. They take care of business and beat the Seahawks at the end. They win the West. And for the Packers, it's going to be, do they build off that momentum and that loss to the Detroit Lions where they played so well? Because you mentioned it, tough place to play in Seattle. A good team should be able to go in there and take care of business.
I think it's time to have a conversation about the Houston Texans. That will be what Monday morning is.
You won't be having that conversation when they beat the Dolphins.
Their 3 wins since beating the Buffalo Bills. 4 wins, excuse me. Patriots, Colts, Dallas, Jacksonville. Those are their 4 wins. They lose every time they go up against a real contender or if they play against the New York Jets on the road. Strange. I don't understand it, but whatever. Their games down the stretch. Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore. Those are 3 of the 4. And then finally on the road at Tennessee, a team that they already lost against 2 weeks ago. If they lose this game, they will be in disaster scenario. 8-6 on the season at that point. Very likely losing each of their next 2 games against Kansas City and Baltimore. 8-8 going into that final game of the regular season. Potentially playing for their playoff lives. That is It's not what this season was supposed to be. There will have to be some serious conversations about what the future looks like in Houston if they end up losing this game coming out of their bye week, by the way. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Rewind is next here on 101 ESPN.
More Blues talk, more often. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
I'm out of here. It is officially the weekend for me. I'll be back in 10 days or so. Going to go spend some time down in Mexico City. Alex is going to be doing the show more or less solo, but he's got Grant Francis.
Damn.
Wow. As a
host,
we got
what a shot.
Alex plus producer party.
Us producers get treated unfairly by Brandon and Kylie of all people.
If anything, I'm looking forward to the show with Grant and Bradford.
You should be.
I don't have to deal with Tone on Monday.
Well, Bradford, you never know.
He's got to bring an encyclopedia for his words he's thrown out there.
Damn, Bradford.
It sounds like Mizzou might be able to get its quarterback this weekend. We shall see on that. If they
won't talk about that Monday.
Really curious to see what Bradford has to say about that on Monday morning.
So it's all Blues on Monday.
He's putting that on the rundown.
No, it's all Blues Monday.
2 Blues games to react to. A lot of NFL. 16 games between now and, or 15 games, I suppose, between now and the start of Tuesday's show. T-Bone going to be out on Monday, but he'll be back in on Tuesday. It'll be the Alex and T-Bone show next week. You guys looking forward to that?
That's right. I'm looking forward. I think it's going to be a great show between Tanner and I.
I agree.
Yeah. There's no tone. We both have respect to each other's opinions when we discuss it on the show. We don't cut each other off when we talk.
Yeah. I don't know about that one, but yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'll probably get cut off a lot by Bradford on Monday.
He gets upset when we yell about something the Blues are doing wrong.
I will miss you guys. I will be thinking about you.
Have fun in Mexico City, Louisiana.
Michelin star restaurants, going to some of the best cocktail bars in the world.
Gonna eat street tacos and be in the bathroom.
But I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kylie. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. We appreciate her as always. We've been broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Talk to you guys soon. Enjoy your weekend. The Fast Lane is coming up next on 101 ESPN.